I would say that the nerves are always there. I still walk on stage and I still do this. Very first show I did with them, and I can still remember that day. Basically, it was Night of Joy at Disney World, and they didn't tell me the first show was going to be like in front of 20,000 people. It wouldn't have done me any good. The lights come on and the people scream, and you know, if you don't give the show its proper respect, then you could find yourself getting distracted. Drop a stick or forget you're on the song or not, but it's like, if you always give the show its respect and be glad that you're there, and it always works out. At this point, for me, it's been definitely a 20-year journey, and it all started here, day one, at Western Carolina. And if it wasn't for Western Carolina University, I wouldn't have begun all these relationships that eventually turned into what my professional career is. And I'm sure anyone who's gone here can say the same thing in their own right. I graduated in 2009 in commercial electronic music with a bachelor's, and I didn't stop. I got a master's 2 years later in 11 in just music. We lived in this room and learned all this stuff, and even at night we didn't go hang out, we just hung out in here. So it was always fun. And then to really make things harder on myself, I wanted to stay, and the next 2 years is what I would say in retrospect is the best time at school, because I started to kind of teach some of these classes, like student assist. Our professor, Doc Frazier, his philosophy was, you can't record music unless you know music. And I know it's possible to YouTube your way through understanding Pro Tools, and I know it's possible to even understand how to use all this stuff, but the philosophy was a bit different. It's like, well, why does this room exist? Why are we here? Well, it's to record music. So he would force us to work with people in Coulter who were actually writing music for actual things. And it was kind of his rule. It's like, if it's going to be recorded, it has to be for something. Just having to teach it to someone else, like, solidified it for me. And like, I kind of understood it, and I can get these knobs to sound good, but can I convey that to someone else? And that was the hardest part, but most rewarding part. Because by the time I felt like I could teach it to someone or explain it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of get it now. I have played drums since 2012, but I had actually worked in their studio for about 3 years before that, and I actually toured with them as a guitar tech. So I've known them for 15 years. I met them while I was going to college here, and I was in charge of their recording studio for about 3 years as I was going to school for music here. And at the time I was like, oh, this is perfect, you know. I'm going to school for this, I'm working in an actual studio in Charleston. But then you get to know these people on a personal level after a couple of years. And as it went, their drummer, he decided he wanted to get off the road, and just overnight, they're like, wow, we need someone who can play drums. And it wasn't like I was trying to be down there to be a drummer. I was just there to, you know, be a studio engineer. But you know the songs because you've been there for years now, hearing them. I helped them record some of their albums, and so like you just know the songs already. So it was a natural thing when they were like, "Hey, could you play drums for a little bit, fill in on this tour?" I was like, "Yeah, anything." And that was the natural progression that 10 years ago, when they asked me to do that first tour, I had already known him for half a decade, and I've already known him as, you know, personal friends. So it was really just like, yeah, let's do this. And they just never said, you know, any otherwise. And, you know, I wish there was a sit down, like, hi, you know, formal moment, but it just wasn't like that. And 10 years later, we're still playing. The first album I helped record with them in 2012 is about to be 10 years old. So we're celebrating the whole decade anniversary of it. And thinking back to Western now, it's just like flooding back. Other than the relationships I have with Need to Breathe, the only other longest musical relationships I have are with people from here. And you almost needed all of them to get to that point. The feeling of like working for a long time, like 15 years with your friends, with your family supported you, you've gone to school, you've learned all these things that you've been told you have to know, and then like, when is this gonna happen? And you kind of like, all these questions in life, but then this one moment, like, wow, this really sums it up in one go.
Randall's from North Carolina now. He's got his kids there.
It really was the people, the professors, the atmosphere, the yes you can, why not kind of philosophy that came with Western. I admire and miss the most. So I owe a whole lot. And there's probably not one day in my professional life that I don't use something I learned here at some point.